oven, whatever. It's tedious, and then you want to have fun. At least this is how I enjoy
Sure.
it. If you look at the palette, it's and all these are still moist enough that even the ones that are dry, like I said, you just add a little water and it'll.
Some of that has to be due to the fact that you're using craft paint, because Vallejo.
No, but I have
for
Vallejo
me-
here.
Yeah, but.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right. If
It
you
seems
only
like
use-
I'll turn around and go, holy crap, it's,
Yeah.
it's completely
Unless
dry.
you use a large enough dollop
Right,
that you do develop that skin over the Vallejo, but then you're using a tremendous amount of paint,
right,
right? And you're like, you want to be a little conservative because it's
Sure.
hard to come by sometimes. Anyway, okay, so we're starting to get some gross definition and recognition of the highlights and the darks. So going back to the eye, I like to use just white with either a wee bit of brown or a wee bit of yellow. Okay, yeah, so now this white, I've mixed it up. I mean, if you see, I don't clean the brush. I go from red, I don't clean it off, take some white, clean it off, take some yellow. I just go from whatever paint to paint to paint and mix it up, but you tend to introduce the red into the white, and so you can always just brush off more of the skin, and there's plenty of unused white that hasn't been contaminated by the red. Right? Okay. There you go. So let's see if we can get. It's hard to do this when you're being filmed. I gotta tell you that. It's very nerve-wracking. So this is kind of an okay enough white for me. I don't have a preconceived formula for what I'm going to use for any of these. It's just different ratios that kind of look like what I think it might be. And when I apply it, if it looks good, great. If it doesn't, well, I'll go back and try a different thing.
So
And I can just wipe this off right now, and it's gone.
You're sort of, with
Okay.
the color, it sounds like you're staying in the middle and then working one end.
Yeah, kind of going back and
Yeah,
forth
you're
as it
not-
builds
you're not-
up.
You don't base coat and then
Yeah.
work on one.
I've done
dark
that.
and the shadowing and then work on the
Yeah,
highlight.
yeah.
You're just continuously working from the middle and,
Yeah, a little back and forth, kind of Goldilocks, find that happy medium.
Mhm.
But again, I could just like take a trash brush and just scrub this off, and it's off. If it were primed, I don't know if I'd be able to do that as easily. Right? And again, we want to make this easy. So I'm going to go ahead and paint some of see if I can get the eyeballs here.
And you've had no experience with peeling due to not using prime?
Not only on large areas. So if it's, let's say, a cloak, like there's this Roman here. So he has a large cloak. So if you go over the same area, which people, I myself, or I included, have a tendency to do, you're painting this area, I'm over here, and then I'm coming back. If I go right back to that spot that I had just painted, yeah, it'll lift off a little bit. But then you just leave it alone, because it's such a thin coat, even if some of it peeled off, once it's dry, when I go back, you won't see that area that peeled off, because it won't leave that kind of crevice or that crater.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And so it's like, yeah, okay, big deal. And I'll do that. I'll show you on this one. Okay, so I'm trying to paint the whites, and I just kind of want to get the overall area. These eyes are really not a choice example. Probably better to use a different one. But, all right, we'll do our best with this one. So you see, I'm not super precise in the beginning. You want to just get the, all right, now I need a little more white. You want to just get the overall area. I can't imagine what this is going to sound like. I'm just rambling endlessly. Okay. This I've had this, I don't know, 2 years? This is, I think, my 4th bottle of red Vallejo that I've gone through. Either I've spilled it or, I'm trying to squeeze it and then the cap flies off, blows off. Okay. And as it gets dry, sometimes it's hard for the paint to pick it up. A little water. These acrylics are really forgiving. People think they're not forgiving. They're very forgiving. Okay. Let me see. So if you look at this, there's not, it doesn't look great by any stretch of the imagination if you look at these eyes under here. But I have the whites in there in the general area, and now I'm going to go back over with a darker color. I'm going to go above it and outline the upper lid, the lower lid, and the inside of the upper lid. Okay, so if you look at me or if you look at anyone else, you can see that the upper lid is defined, the inside of the upper lid, and above the upper lid. Okay, and then you go and you paint a little bit on the below the lower lid. We'll come back to the lower lid. The lower lid is going to be lighter. The crease below the lower lid is going to be lighter than the crease above the upper lid. Okay, and if you look at some of these guys under the mag, you'll see that. So I'll come back with the brown, and I'm just poking the brush into it, and that's probably why the lifespan of my brushes isn't very good. But they seem to last long enough to finish a couple of figures. Add a little red. There you go. I like this reddish brown. Okay, so I'm going to go... Please chime in if anyone has any questions.
But the eyelashes are already in there?
The eyelashes?
Yeah.
I was going to put those on later.
Okay.
Now the other thing with eyes and other aspects of painting, like on this one, okay, so these folds on the side of the horse's campison, those aren't sculpted on it, okay, but I painted it to give it that three-dimensional effect. So with the eyes also, if you look at your upper lid extends a little further than the lower lid, right? If you look, Jim's a good example right here. The way the shadows, okay, is so if you that's not going to be sculpted, but if you add that, so it extends a little further, and then the lower lid comes up short, it will lend to the effect you're trying to achieve. You're trying to show the eye. Okay, so that's what I did on his. So I painted that on him. It's not there, but I just went ahead and extended that crease. I'm sorry, a little further. You guys with me? Mm-hmm. And then I mean, already it's so on the right side. The way the curve of the eyelid, it was already heading that direction. On the left side, though, the eyelid's going up. So this is a little bit of a challenge. So don't blame me if it doesn't look quite. But you can actually do a little sculpting with your paint too if you want to dollop a little paint on some areas. It'll harden and then you can use that as your surface. But I'm going to go ahead and paint it as though the eyelid was going that direction, even though it's not. Okay. And you also always want a dark spot on the inside.
Or the nose. Yeah.
Right here. So if you look at, sorry for that, I was forgetting. John?
Todd.
Todd. Yeah, a little dark spot here, a little dark spot there. So these things are going to suggest what you're trying to achieve. And your brain will recognize that and go, oh yeah, that's how an eye looks. So I'm going to make the lower lid a little bit lighter. No white. Okay, and you see this orangish yellow color. I don't know if you can see this palette at all, but it's kind of all over the place. I just need a clean area. I don't really care. Okay, so that's like an ideal color. And if you recall, there's some areas that I use kind of a black-brown on. Well, when I go over it with a lighter red-orange, it mutes that black. Okay? So then, and that's because that red-orange is now soaking into that dry black area, and it will mute it. Do we have to get out of here?
No, that's okay.
So now I'm just outlining it with this color. All those areas that were darker, because there is that darker black-brown base color. So it's not going to be the color that I'm using. It's going to be a combination of the color I'm using and whatever color was beneath it. And there will be areas that are still a little dark, and I can go back over. So if you look at the right side of his face, it's starting to become a little more recognizable.